So good morning. Thanks so much for coming today and hearing about AB 161, which we're calling the Skip the Slip legislation. For all of you who go into grocery stores or pharmacies and convenience stores and you end up buying a few things and you end up walking out with a receipt that seems to be this long. This is a more life-size version. But you could see you're very used to seeing these very, very long receipts. I think what's one of the most fascinating facts is that almost all of these receipts have BPA. We spent a significant amount of time to get BPA out of baby bottles, and I'm very fortunate for that for my young children who use those bottles after we got rid of BPA. But to actually know that each of these receipts, almost every single one of them has BPA, which obviously we know is harmful to the environment, harmful to our health. And just to give you a couple stats from Green America, it takes up to 10 million trees and 21 billion gallons of water in the United States every year to produce these receipts. And extracting those trees produces 12 billion pounds of carbon emissions. So what is our answer? I think we have a very easy solution. Instead of making paper receipts the default, let's make electronic receipts or email receipts the default, and you can get a paper receipt by request. And so AB 161 is basically saying, let's make e-receipts the default as of January 1st, 2022. If you go into many of the small businesses, especially ones that have started more recently, almost all of them, when you pay by a credit card, all those receipts, you can say, I don't want a receipt, or you can say, just email me a receipt. It's very, very common, especially with most of the new credit card type machines. It's almost seen as the standard business practice now. In addition to what we talked about in terms of BPA, I think it's so important to really highlight why these chemicals are so dangerous. We've worked to get them out of contact from our children. It doesn't make sense to take this and put it into the recycling bin. So then all of these chemicals go into a waste stream. And I was actually shocked. I didn't actually know this until I actually started looking into this legislation, because most people assume that all these receipts can be recyclable. Guess what? They can't be recycled because of the BPA. So again, it's common sense legislation. We think it's a minimal cost, and it's really putting the power back in the consumers by saying, hey, if you want the paper, yeah, you can ask for it, but why force you to take the paper? Because most of us don't want to most of us, what do we do with this paper when we get home or get done? It goes into the waste bin. It goes to the recycling bin, right? So again, why have something that's totally unnecessary, and again, something that's really bad for the environment? So we really are proud to introduce AB 161 today, the Skip the Slip legislation. We have two great speakers. The first speaker is going to be Brett Chamberlain, who's the author of The Story of Stuff, and he's reading a statement from Green America. So, Brett.
Assemblymember Ting. Good morning, everyone. My name again is Brett Chamberlain, reading a statement on behalf of Green America. And for over 35 years, Green America has worked to grow the green economy and empower individuals by supporting environmentally and socially responsible businesses. This work includes striving to reduce the waste of resources and energy and implementing solutions that are beneficial to people and the planet. I'm here today on behalf of Green America to lend its full support for this new bill, which ensures that businesses will reduce their waste and save resources by offering paperless receipts. Green America's Skip the Slip campaign addresses the environmental and human health impacts of receipts. Using the paper calculator, a trusted life cycle assessment tool from the Environmental Paper Network, Green America estimates that U.S. receipt production consumes 10 million trees and 21 billion gallons of water every single year, and creates unnecessary waste and carbon dioxide emissions. Research from organizations such as the Environmental Paper Network and Ecology Center have documented the prevalent use of bisphenols like BPA or BPS on thermal receipt paper. We absorb these endocrine disrupting chemicals from touching receipts, and they're linked to numerous health problems and pose risks for both consumers and for workers. For these reasons, Green America supports this new bill introduced by Assemblymember Ting, which will ensure paperless receipts will be offered to all customers in California by 2022. The impacts of resource depletion and increasing greenhouse gas emissions are already being felt by communities worldwide. All sectors need to work aggressively towards greater sustainability, and this is a wonderful step on the path to reducing unnecessary waste from our daily lives. This measure will also lower costs by reducing the need for receipt paper, making it positive for businesses as well. Green America applauds this leadership to steer businesses in a direction that will not only reduce waste, but also minimize exposure to potentially harmful toxins for employees and customers alike. Thank you.
Thanks so much, Brett. And next we got Nick Lapis from Californians Against Waste. Nick?
Hi, good morning. I'm Nick Lapis with the environmental organization Californians Against Waste. We're in strong support of this bill and frankly think it's the perfect time to be introducing something like this. For many years, a lot of forms of paper that weren't truly recyclable were out of sight and out of mind. We were told to put all of our paper in our recycling bins, and when that recycling bin gets taken to a sorting facility, all of that paper ended up in a bale of mixed paper that got shipped overseas to China, where they were basically picking out the good stuff and getting rid of the bad stuff. As of 2 years ago, China has said they no longer want mixed bales of paper, mixed bales of plastic. They're willing to take clean materials, like a bale of all newsprint or a bale of all office paper, but things like receipts are now a contaminant in our recycling stream. So not only are they not recyclable, they're actually making our recyclables less recyclable. And frankly, when we're looking at this gigantic crisis of waste increase that we've seen in the last few years, the lowest hanging fruit for reducing waste is stuff like this. It's the category of products that you are handed, that you don't want, and that you basically hold on to until you get to a trash can. If we can't get rid of those, we really can't tackle the more difficult things. The people who want a receipt can still get a receipt. The rest of us won't have to carry a pocket full of receipts until we get home to trash. So we're proud to support this legislation and commend Mr. Ting for a career of working on recycling issues. Thank you.
Thank you, Nick. And I think Nick hammers a very good point home, which is for those of us who are very environmentally conscious, and I'd put most Californians in that category, we have the blue bins at home. We're constantly, very religiously figuring out what we want to put into the blue bin, what goes in the blue bin. Nowadays, if you talk to many of the waste haulers, much of that blue bin isn't really being recycled because of exactly what Nick said. Traditionally, the largest consumer of those blue bin items was China. They've now said, hey, we're getting much more stringent about what we want, so we're not taking it. So guess where a lot of that blue bin material is going? It's going into landfill. It's actually not being recycled. So again, if we actually care about recycling material, if we care about doing something right for the environment, then we have to make sure what's going in the blue bin is actually material that can be recycled. There's a market for recycling, and again, the product will actually be reused somewhere. So again, one of the ways that we can ensure this is just making sure that these don't go into our waste stream, that these receipts stay out of the waste stream. They don't go into the blue bin. They don't go into the black bin. They don't need to even be created. So again, we think this is common sense legislation. Really appreciate Brett and Nick for joining us, and frankly, our fabulous model here with Skip the Slip. And happy to take any questions if you have them.
Mr. Chamberlain, you mentioned as part of the Skip the Slip campaign, is this also being introduced in other states?
I'd have to refer that question to Green America. I'd be happy to provide you with contact information for staff members there.
Or if someone who knows if
It is the first in the nation, according to Green America. There's not a statewide law implemented. Since we're streaming this, it'd be great if you repeat the question and then answer it so that others
So the question is, are there any other states who are doing this legislation? According to Green America, California is the first to be doing this.
Can you talk more about BPA and why it's in the paper and about the petition?
Sure. I don't know if Brett can or Nick. I'll let the experts kind of talk a little bit more about it.
Sure. As opposed to a conventional printer that we may have in our households or offices, which apply ink via an inkjet, receipt paper is thermally reactive. It uses a different process that requires the application of chemicals such as BPA and BPS, which we have long since eliminated from a variety of other products that we come in contact with. However, this is a residual source of potential toxicity, not just for consumers, but particularly for workers who need to handle this type of paper every single day.
And a little bit about the petition, where can people find that? There's you said.
Oh, our online petition, yeah. So you can just be going to our website, our Assembly website, and we're happy to send that email us. Unfortunately, because of state regulations, it's not a very easy website to repeat, so apologize. We'll email it to you. Yes. Oh, sorry.
When does this go into effect and what's the cost of it?
The proposal is to go into effect January 1st, 2022, so it gives plenty of time for implementation. My understanding is already most retailers, especially most large retailers, the software, their point-of-sale systems already can do this, so we're giving them enough time to be able to implement it.
And cost?
We don't have a cost estimate right now.
And is there any concern, I know when I go and get a receipt, it has lots of coupons on it, it has lots of contextual information. Is there not a fear that you're losing some marketing value from these companies that use these receipts to try and push products to consumers?
Well, again, I think there's plenty of ways to push products if that's their goal digitally. I mean, we're seeing that more and more every day on our phones. So I don't think that there's much of an impact. I would let the different companies speak for themselves. What we're focused on is really the impact on the consumers and really the impact on the environment. There's a negative impact on the environment with these receipts, the inability to recycle them, as well as the contact with BPA. On top of it, consumers need to figure out what to do with these receipts once they get them. So again, that's something that we're going to free consumers of, and I'll let the companies speak for themselves about the various marketing issues that they may face.
Any issues with small businesses, exemptions for them or help for them if they've got paper?
No exemptions at this point. Again, what we're saying is that customers can ask for a paper receipt, but the default should be an electronic receipt. Actually, I think small businesses have moved much faster in this area because many of the newer, smaller, cheaper terminals, that's the default. The default is you put your credit card in the machine, you get a cup of coffee that says, hey, do you even want a receipt? Do you want it emailed? Do you want a text? You have a wide variety of options. So I think actually small businesses have already adopted this much faster. It's really many of these larger, older legacy systems that haven't caught up to today's times.
Is there any precautions where if somebody says, email it to me, and they give you give them their email, that the person who gets the email doesn't distribute it out to other people?
I think.
Doesn't sell it to other
I think that's a very legitimate concern. So I think for those people, they can go and say, hey, I don't want to give you any of my information. I just want you to give me a paper receipt. So again, they can ask for that. If that's something but again, if you look about how ubiquitous our cell phones and our emails are, it's almost impossible to really reverse that trend. That trend is now sort of every time we're buying something online, more and more of us are buying more and more of our things online. What's the thing we have to give them? We have to give them an email, or oftentimes we have to give them a cell phone number.
If I can play devil's advocate for just a minute here, I mean, I can almost hear the criticism, the anti-government, bill in search of a problem, that kind of thing. Can you sort of respond to, particularly as you say, many are already moving this way, many consumers are already moving this way. Why do you need to legislate it?
Well, I think, again, one of the biggest reasons was the point that Nick really pointed out. I don't think most people are realizing that what they believe is being recycled is actually going into landfill. So one of the easiest ways we can ensure that the recycling that we actually put into our recycling bin actually gets recycled is by making that waste stream much, much cleaner and purer. And one of the ways is to not pollute it with receipts that are not recyclable and, again, have chemicals that are toxic. I think the other issue is that most people don't know that these receipts contain BPA. In fact, I was shocked to hear that. We've worked very, very hard to have BPA not come in contact with baby bottles and many other plastic materials. And so it's really commonly wide-held knowledge that BPA is toxic and something that really we shouldn't be touching. So again, to think that every time I'm getting a receipt, I have to touch a BPA filled receipt seems to be not only irresponsible, but also very dangerous.
What, if any, penalties will there be for companies that do not comply? And what is the likelihood, you think, of this passing given?
You know, at this point, we haven't put in penalties.
It's $25
Oh, I'm sorry.
per violation.
I apologize.
A maximum of $300. It's the same as the straw bill that was put in effect earlier this year.
I actually believe it's 2 warnings, right?
Two warnings
Yeah.
and 25.
So the language, I'm sorry.
No.
The language is modeled on the straw legislation that passed last year. So there are 2 warnings before you get any fine, and then you get a $25 fine after that. It's intended to be a pretty light touch in terms of enforcement, but as you probably have noticed in the past couple months, straws are already being taken out of most restaurants. And in fact, that happened before the law even went into effect. So I think there's an opportunity to do something similar here.
And you said up to $300 for fines?
Yeah, capped at 300.
And just given the history with plastic straws, what is your confidence level that this legislation will get passed and implemented?
Well, I think we're very hopeful that it'll get passed and signed this year. You know, we've done some initial outreach to industry just to take their pulse, and really more than happy to find ways to work with them to make sure that this actually gets implemented.
And when are you planning to introduce it?
Oh, it's been introduced. It was introduced yesterday. Great. Thank you so much for coming. Oh, sorry. Last.
Can you give us the story behind the skip the slip receipt there?
I don't know.
That's illustrating and just sort of describe it.
Well, I think again, this is what we're showing is just what is a typical receipt, and what is a typical receipt nowadays is not just a receipt of the items that you purchase, but is a long list of coupons of advertising, you know, buy this or buy that. So, you know, again, when you have, and this is just, this is actually a real one. So you can see, this is the receipt, which is about 10% of the material, and the other 90% of the material are just, again, advertising. So, again, you know, we think that this doesn't make a lot of sense. It's not very environmental. It's not recyclable. And again, having BPA products in your household, we know are dangerous to both adults as well as to, especially young children. So again, if you think about, you know, why we don't have BPA in baby bottles, how many kids, you know, put stuff in their mouths, right? So you have receipts lying around and they start sticking this in their mouth. It's the same thing as giving them a baby bottle with BPA. So again, we think this is common sense legislation, and we want to make sure that California, again, leads this way in this thinking. Thank you. Appreciate it.